Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Ambassador, Honorable Mayor, my good friends and family from the Caribbean, from France, President Sandra, thank you on behalf of the Jamaican delegation, Honorable Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Ajaguna, Ambassador Balfour Peart, and of course, Mrs. Patricia Francis. I want to thank you for this warm welcome. It's good to see the President of the Caribbean Shipping Association, Mr. David John Marie, and the President of Port Management Association, Mr. Bishon John, joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very special moment because I'm deeply committed and connected to this whole initiative. I just use my few moments to speak a little on the trends of what's happening. I'm going to connect the global perspective to the Caribbean and then show us the potential and more or less provide a simple roadmap of where I think we need to go. We're living in an interconnected world today. More than ever, we need each other. No longer are products made in any one country, in any one place. It's now about that global connected world. The supply chain, ladies and gentlemen, things have transitioned from mere transshipment to now value-adding solutions. And this is the opportunity and the challenge for our region. Because whereas we boasted about transshipment, but now the market has moved a step further to value-adding logistics. This is going to require a whole new platform, new infrastructure. Yes, let me wait on the translator. I'm sorry. Thank you. It is going to require new infrastructure for us to service this new economy. Ladies and gentlemen, the Panama Canal is scheduled, the third lane is scheduled to open another month, but already it is too small. In 2005, when you had the referendum, right, 2006, at that time, 12,000 20-foot equivalent unit was seen as 25% bigger than the biggest container ship ever imagined. And it is showing us the pace at which globalization is moving. Now the MSC Oscar is afloat at 20,000 TEU. Whether we like to hear it or not, the Nicaraguan Canal must remain on the drawing board. When the Panama Canal was built and opened in 1914, the estimated cost today in present dollars would have been $8.5 trillion. That was the price of geopolitical shift. And I like to say, a price tag of 50 billion is not too high of a price for geopolitical shift. We have real issues to consider. Climate change. There's water challenges for Panama like every other country. The current canal requires over 53 million gallons of water to put one ship through the canal. That's fresh water. These are some real things that we must consider as we think about a global world. Next slide, please. Urbanization. 2008, We passed the threshold where more people are living in cities than in rural communities. This creates a new dynamics for the world. People in cities require services more instantaneous. Hence, Amazon now experimenting with drones and other real-time technologies. We're living in a different world, a different space. 9 out of every 10 containers coming to our region. When I say our region, I'm thinking of the bigger Caribbean, which I will define in a moment, return empty because we provide primarily services in the Caribbean. This is why this region, the cost of transporting goods is 2/3 higher than the rest of the world's average. Dr. Ajaguna in the audience and I have done several studies on this to prove this point. This is an opportunity for us to use that empty reverse leg to create value for our people. So the Caribbean now is an expanded market. The Caribbean Sea, as was said, which is what now divides us, is the greatest opportunity to unite us. We are now in an 800 million population market. By this is not just about North America, but a growing South-South trade. The Brazil, the Argentinas are real opportunities for us as a Caribbean space to connect. And this is the challenge for the French Caribbean to become the gateway to the European Union. Could you go back one, please? So it is about a global value chain, no longer about transshipment. Let us move beyond that concept in our minds. Singapore had to do this with the expansion of trade to now include value chains. They had to move from transshipment ports to now integrated logistic services. The Panama Canal is quite a point, and it goes back that it was a necessity. It was built primarily for geostrategic reasons. It was not built for commerce, because at that price tag you can see at 8.5 trillion, the repayment cost on that would have been too much. But today, it was one of the greatest investments. And in fact, history proves that many major investments at the time were seen as crazy. So was the New York subway. The man who led that project was fired and termed a man who wasted public resources. But yet, that was the major foundation on which the efficiency of New York City was built. Just follow the red dot, just to show, and the blue dot to show the difference in distance using the Panama Canal. 21,000 kilometers versus 8,000 kilometers. And I'll advance, please. The Panama Canal is essentially a bridge that takes a ship from the Pacific Ocean, next please, from the Miraflores Lock, takes you up 26 meters above sea level and down, connecting the Pacific Ocean with the Atlantic Ocean. Ladies and gentlemen, the Caribbean, the greater Caribbean, which is what I want us to move the limits of our minds and definition to this space. And I want to thank Sandra again, because when she invited me last year to be the keynote speaker in Paris at the press launch of this trade fair, In doing my research and in visiting the beautiful country of Martinique, my eyes were open to see a greater Caribbean. Because I must apologize, in my own research and writings over the years, we used to define the Caribbean in a different space because the French territories were always seen as part of the European Union. Not using the proximity as a connecting point to a greater market. And a challenge for us as the rest of the Caribbean to lift our standards to meet global standards so we can trade freely with the European Union. That's the context. So it's a window to the Americas. Next, please. Let me just highlight quickly some drivers for change. The first is economies of scale. And with that, I'll also include economy of scope. My good friend from Panama, MIT, excellent presentation, great job you're doing, spoke of the expansion. This continuous expansion comes from larger ships that need greater efficiency. Bigger cranes, deeper channels, bigger airports, more land space to have logistics in the one space. So the world is demanding a green field every few years now, which is expensive. But if we want to be relevant, we have to adopt a change. It was Charles Darwin who said, "It is not the strongest of species that survive, but the most adaptable." And this is what we should put in our vocabularies as Caribbean people. You can see scale. The ships have moved from the 1956 Malcolm McLean's vessel to now 2 generations beyond what's on the screen, the 20,000 20-foot equivalent unit vessel. Here's a photo of the MSC Oscar. And scale has now moved because cost is now associated. If you look quickly, in 2008, a vessel of 13,000 TEUs would cost $90,000 US per day for operation. Look at what it was in 2013. And reduce that by 23% to bring you into 2016 figures. You can see why the drive for change, for scale. Technology. Next. What do people used to do at the beach? Have a good time. But today, you go to the beach. You go to the beach to now use your phone. It's all about social media. And my own minister is hooked on social media. As a minister of information, if you follow his Facebook page, it changes minutely. I wonder how he does it. So it's all about the technology. Last year, I visited a hospital and I saw this patient all dressed in green with about 7 different, trolleys behind with drips. And I felt so sorry for this person. While waiting to go into theater, came out from under the sheet a cell phone with a selfie. The world has changed. It's about the interconnection. Aspects of goods may pass the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean multiple times before it reaches the final consumer. The Panama Canal must be seen of one of 3 competing routes to get to the United States East Coast and the Caribbean. Well, the United States East Coast, where 60% of the US population lives. The first competing route is the Suez Canal. which the expansion took place last year and was open at $8 billion US. There is no limitation to the size of vessels that are now accessing the United States East Coast. So that route currently has the advantage. The second, you can go back please, too far. Yes. The second is via the US West Coast, connecting to the rail and the highway, the intermodal system, to go across. There's no limitation to the size of vessels, but there are challenges with strikes and unforeseen delays in the West Coast. And third, the most preferred route is via the Panama Canal. So the expansion, the opening of the third lane, will definitely result in some shifting of cargo from the other two routes to the Panama Canal route. Here you can see the red showing you the potential Nicaraguan canal. Whether we like it or not, there's a shift in global power. From the west to the east. Did you know that the size of the US population represents the number of children in primary school in China, 300 million? The realities have changed, and we have to open our minds to the change. Go back, please. It's not just about the Nicaraguan Canal has its own issues, but those can be overcome. In the past, the Panama Canal was seen as a project that could not happen. Now, there's also talks of the Guatemalan interoceanic corridors. These are real potential access points in connecting the Pacific Ocean with the Atlantic Ocean. Let's not rule them out. Next, please. The emergence of logistics hub. It's all about clustering. It's about a concept of the last mile logistics. For you to have a last mile, it suggests that there is a first mile. Within the last mile, because it's now an instant age, it can account for 28% of the total cost in the supply chain. This is what gives us the opportunity in the Caribbean. We have to be part of that global value chain. I am very impressed with the infrastructure that you have in Martinique and in the French Caribbean. And this must be leveraged to accommodate the global value chain. Thereby translating into real economic opportunities for your people and the wider Caribbean. I believe in the 50% rule. 100% of $1,000 is less than, is less than 50% of $1 billion or even $1 million. Let us change our perspective and realize that the law of synergy says that 1 + 1 = 3. I'll just show you the challenge with the larger infrastructure in the Caribbean in transitioning. No, go back, please. Next. Thank you. Sorry. In transitioning from transshipment to logistics, value added. Within the port environment, logistics require space within which cargoes can be unloaded, loaded, and value added before moving to the final consumer. This is the Bahamas, the Freeport, which is one of the major transshipment ports, but lacks the space and the configuration to include logistics. Next. This was Cowcedar Dumrip. The prior port was in Rio Haino, which was landlocked. Now Cowcedar provides more space, but not much different. So there's call for another greenfield project in the future. Next. This is the value added proposition that they have. Next. Mariel in Cuba. They have created a greenfield project which has 456 square kilometers of space earmarked for a mega economic zone to later include air and sea integration. This is addressing the future. Cuba has its own challenges. Cuba by itself and the other Caribbean countries cannot satisfy the global demand. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest resource in the Caribbean are our people. And 60% of the best jobs in the next 10 years have not yet been invented. We have an urgent call to retool our people for jobs of the future. And through the Honorable Minister Reid, we'll be signing a collaborative agreement with some training institutions here in Martinique to prove that we are ready to be part of the change. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.